All right, so today we're going to help you answer the question, are you growing apart from your partner or is your marriage just in a rough patch? So here's the question that nobody actually says out loud. I had a couple sat across from me last week. They had been married 11 years. They had two young kids. They had good jobs. On the outside, they were a successful couple. And the husband said to me, we look fine, but we feel like we're roommates who used to be in love. And his wife was nodding along, right? She felt it too. Now, I made this video because most relationship advice skips right over this part, the part where you don't know if what you're feeling is normal or if it's the beginning of the end. So let's get clear. I think it's important to ask you something. Have you been quietly wondering, is it normal to be this disconnected in my relationship? Or is this just a rough season that we're in? It will get better over time. Or are you really asking yourself if you're slowly growing apart or maybe even incompatible? Most people are not having these conversations or even saying this out loud. They just thinking quietly late at night while maybe brushing their teeth or laying next to the person that they love. And that question often doesn't come from a place of panic. It comes with this low, heavy feeling that won't leave you alone. You still care. You're still there. You have a good relationship, but something feels a bit thinner than it used to. And for a lot of couples in this situation, the scary part isn't divorce. It's actually loss of closeness, loss of ease, loss of feeling like you and your partner are an us. And most couples don't fall apart in one big fight. They slowly drift quietly while they're still sharing a bed. They're still paying the bills. They're still running a life together. So if that's you, stick with me because there's a big difference between slowly drifting apart and just being worn down by life that leads to this disconnection cycle. And by the end of this video, I want you to have some clarity, not in a dramatic way, not about blaming you or your partner, but just a clear sense of what's actually happening in your relationship and what you can do next. So let's start by asking, why does this question feel so heavy? Why does this question get so loud in our heads when we're in these moments of disconnection? Well, the first thing is to understand that your brain, it hates not knowing things. Uncertainty often feels worse than bad news. So when something feels off, your mind starts scanning for danger. Maybe you're kind of going over your old texts, you're analyzing tone in your relationship, you're replaying old conversations. If you do that, it doesn't mean you're needy or broken or anything. It means that when connection feels a bit shaky, your nervous system tends to go on high alert. Not knowing where we stand with the person that we love feels unsafe. And this matters because in those moments, protection can often look like distance. So I'm going to show you kind of what protection actually means in daily life. A lot of couples who are in this situation often stop sharing small things because it just feels easier not to share them. Maybe you don't reach for your partner's hand anymore because you're not sure if they're going to take it and squeeze it back. Maybe you say, I'm fine, but you're not. And you say that because explaining why you're not fine feels exhausting or might even bring up some conflict. Maybe you're watching your partner scroll on their phone or binging Netflix and you just don't say anything. So none of that is dramatic. It's just quiet. And here's what a lot of people don't realize. When you don't know where you stand in your relationship, your nervous system gets activated like we talked about. It's just low grade, but it's all the time. That's why you feel tired, even when nothing big is happening. Your body is just in this constant state of self-protection. And there's something that a lot of people get wrong when it comes to growing apart. Most people think growing apart means we stop loving each other or, we're not compatible anymore. Maybe you think that you've changed too much. That's usually not true. Most of the couples that I work with, most of them still love each other. They still care about each other. They still want it to work. And so what's missing isn't love. It's a sense of security. It's energy. And it's actually creating a container or a space to reconnect. So here's a reframe for you that might actually help. Distance is often a response, not a decision. People don't wake up one day and choose disconnection. Like, I can't wait to be disconnected to my partner today. But people do pull back because something started to feel a bit risky. We go into protection mode. Now, I think it's important to talk about 3 myths that really keep people stuck. The first myth is if we were right for each other, this wouldn't be so hard. Now, in reality, all long-term relationships go through seasons of disconnection. Compatibility doesn't mean that you're drifting. It doesn't prevent that. It just gives you more to work with when you're repairing. The second myth is this idea that you've changed too much. Now, the reality is of course you've changed. The question isn't whether you've changed too much. It's whether you're still choosing each other as you change. Now, There's a beautiful quote from Esther Perel. She says, most of us have 3 or 4 romantic relationships in our adult lives. And it's up to us to decide if we want those relationships to be with the same person. So think about that. In a marriage, we're always evolving and we get to rediscover our partner, rediscover our connection, but it takes intention. Now, myth number 3, this is a big one. If we have to work at it, it's not meant to be. The reality is connection takes tending. It's not a sign of failure. It's actually a sign that you're committed. And a lot of individuals are scared to make that commitment. So why do these myths even matter? Because if you think the problem is compatibility, you're not going to do the work that actually rebuilds connection. You're just going to keep wondering if you're with the wrong person. You're always going to be 1 foot out the door, wondering if there's something better out there. Now, the real difference here, and this part matters, is because you can actually understand if you're going through a rough patch. Life is heavy, work, kids, stress, money, health, all that stuff. You're tired. And so connection drops. You don't talk as much, probably default just to logistics, end up crashing in bed instead of connecting. But underneath all that, there's still goodwill. Both of you still want to feel close. You still miss each other. You just don't know how to get there right now. And growing apart, it looks totally different. This is where your body starts to protect itself and you actively choose to stay in protection mode. You share less. You avoid hard conversations. You stop reaching out because it feels safer not to. It's not dramatic. It's not loud. It's just quiet. And here's the line I want you to remember. When it feels unsafe to need your partner, distance grows. That's not a character flaw. It's actually, again, it's a nervous system response. Now, I'll give you a simple self-assessment so you can see where you're at in your own relationship. These are 5 simple gut check questions that you can ask yourself right now. Okay, so question number 1, do I still want to feel close or have I stopped wanting it? Question number 2, when something good happens, do I still think about telling my partner first? Number 3 is when we do connect, does it feel like relief or like obligation? Number 4 is, am I protecting myself from disappointment or am I just exhausted? And number 5 is, if things got easier tomorrow, would I move towards them or would I choose to stay where I'm at? So here's what your answers mean. I mean, if you answered yes to 1, 2, and 3, you're probably in a rough patch. The wire's still live, still a spark there, still some fire, right? Some embers. You still want closeness. You're just totally worn down. If you answered no to most of those, you're in protection mode. The system has actually adapted and gotten used to distance. And that's not the end of the story. It just means the work is different. Now, here's the part that most couples miss. There's usually a moment in a relationship when somebody stopped reaching. Again, it's not dramatic. It's just small. They stopped saying, I miss you, because maybe it didn't land. They stopped initiating sex because the rejection started to hurt. They stopped bringing up hard things because conversations just tended to escalate and get tense, leading to more disconnection. And then the adaptation cycle kicks in. All right, so here's kind of what it looks like in real time. Step 1 is you reach out. Step 2, doesn't go well, doesn't land. Step 3 is you tell yourself, okay, it's fine, try again later, but you reach out a bit less. Now, the next step is your partner notices the distance, and as a form of self-protection, they also pull back. Now you're both protecting, and at times even blaming the other person for the distance. Now, most couples can't actually pinpoint when this started because it didn't really start with a bang. It wasn't a big fight that started this cycle. It actually started with a moment that felt so small, so insignificant, and then it compounded over time. So most couples aren't growing apart because they don't care. They're growing apart because they both got hurt, and neither of them know how to say it or talk about it. Now, that's not the same as falling out of love. That's 2 people who care, stuck in a pattern that they just don't know how to overcome. And there's another piece here, this whole idea of trying harder, how that backfires. And this is where a lot of couples tend to get stuck. They just grind it out. They try harder, they push talks, they schedule those date nights together. That's good, but they demand closeness. And it tends to make it even worse. And here's why, because pressure kills safety. The nervous system doesn't open because of effort. It actually opens because of relief and security. Connection doesn't come back when you push. It comes back when your body feels less braced. So let me show you what trying harder actually looks like in real time. You might be right now scheduling date nights, but on that date night, you're trying to spend the whole time forcing conversation. Maybe you're asking things like, hey, are we okay? When you really mean, hey, please reassure me. I need some reassurance. You initiate sex when you're actually just trying to test if they still want you and still desire you. Now, none of that's wrong, but none of it creates safety. It tends to just lead to more pressure. And in those moments, pressure tends to make your partner pull back even more. So you might be thinking, okay, Eric, this is great. It explains a lot. I get it. This is landing for me. But this is also why willpower doesn't fix disconnection. You don't rebuild closeness by forcing it. You actually rebuild it by lowering the tension one step at a time. So let's talk about what actually rebuilds connection. Okay, here's what does work. There's 3 conditions that need to be true for connection to come back in a relationship that's flatlined. The first condition is you got to lower the stakes. Stop trying to fix everything in one conversation. Stop trying to have the hard talk, thinking it's going to make everything better. It's about one small moment of safety. That's worth more than 10 of those deep forced talks. Number 2 is reduce some of that bracing. If someone's protecting, your job isn't to convince them. It's to show them through your behavior that it's safe to soften. You know, an analogy here that I often use with a lot of the couples I work with is when you try to force somebody into connection, it's like if they were a cat in a cage and they got used to that cage. That cage created a lot of safety for them. And when you were trying to create connection with them, you just open the door of the cage and you just put your hand in there and you try to pull them out. Well, you can imagine, I remember growing up, we had a lot of kittens, right? I was always trying to grab the cats and they were like bracing against the back of the wall. They did not want to be picked up. And I just kept grabbing. And that's what some of us try to do in our connection. But instead, what we have to do is we have to just open the door and create an environment that invites, in this moment, the cat come out. We have to invite your partner into a space of connection, into a container. We cannot force them into it. Now, a lot of guys, they start doing this well. I've seen this in a lot of men. Okay, I got it, Eric. I hear you. But what happens is as soon as they start creating that environment and their partner starts to get curious and step out, start engaging, they start grabbing them and the pressure comes back. And that's the moment when it's hardest to stay the course, to be consistent with creating a safe space. And the reason that people struggle with this is because it seems so counterintuitive. Which brings me to number 3, which is practicing without it needing to be perfect. The reality is you're not going to get this right every time, and that's fine. Actually, repair matters more than getting it right the first time. I think there's a better question around this. It's not, why don't we connect anymore? That question can often put your partner on the defensive. Puts them right back to be like, I don't know, why is it my problem? Why can't we work on this together? What do you think's the reason we're not connecting anymore? Instead, try, hey, what's been the hardest for you lately that you haven't really said out loud? That question does something a bit different. It moves you from trying to fix a situation to trying to understand a situation. And your partner is most likely going to go from defending to softening. And there's one important rule here. If you ask this, don't correct their response. Don't explain yourself. Don't justify anything. Just listen to them with curiosity and understanding. And there's another micro step here that a lot of people miss. When they finish expressing themselves, just validate them. Hey, that makes sense. Thanks for telling me. That's it. No advice, no fixing, no solving. Safety grows when somebody feels heard, not when they feel like a problem to be solved. So I want to check in with you. If you're still watching, just take a breath here for 1 second. Which part of this is really hitting close to home for you? That answer matters. You have to connect to that intuition and that inner wisdom. So ask yourself, do we still turn towards each other sometimes? Do we still care when the other is hurting? Do I still want closeness, even if it feels a little bit risky? If the answer is yes, well, then your situation is workable. It's very workable. A lot of couples are in your exact situation. Now, most couples, they're not growing apart. They're just overwhelmed. They're feeling disconnected, and nobody ever taught them how to come back to each other. This is not about blame. It's not about grinding it out or forcing things. It's about learning how to create a safe container for your relationship and your connection together. Now, if this video helped you see the difference between drifting and protecting, that's a major first step. Let me know in the comments if it landed for you. The second step is actually knowing what to do next. Now, that's a big part of why we created the Connection Blueprint. It's a map that I wish every couple had before they hit the point where distance just starts to feel totally normal. It's a simple step-by-step framework you can follow together to help bring life back into your marriage. Not by forcing closeness, not by fixing each other, but by lowering the tension, by rebuilding emotional safety and reconnecting in small, real, tangible ways that actually last. This is something I share with all my couples when I work with them. right? You don't need to keep drifting quietly, and you actually don't need to guess what's wrong. You just need a system. And so you can grab that in the link below. I'll see you in the next video.